30 of the Hilo Stitch podcast. I am your host, Kristen of Media Peruana Designs, and I am here to talk to you about what else? Knitting. I will also be talking about goings-on in the fiber arts community, pattern design, and as always, possibly Diego Luna. Who knows? So thank you so much for joining me today. A special thank you to my Patreon patrons who help support the podcast, and a special welcome to anyone who is checking out the podcast for the first time. So if you don't know me already, my name is Kristen Janik. I'm a knitting pattern designer and instructor. I am also mom to 2 little boys that you may be able to hear downstairs, and wife to a very tall man from Peru. We live in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C., and when I am not knitting, those rare occasions, I enjoy Orioles baseball, vegetable gardening, reading, drinking wine, but it is mostly about the knitting, so let's start talking about it. Hi everyone, how are we doing? Here in month 9, 10 of the pandemic, and of social distancing, if not being on total lockdown. I hope everyone is well and staying safe and healthy, and enjoying the holiday season. So the holiday we celebrate here is Christmas, and we are getting very close. Right now it is less than 2 weeks until Christmas, and this is going to be my last podcast before the holiday. I am going to try to drop my yarn. I am going to try to do a podcast between Christmas and the New Year. We'll see how that goes. Apparently the dog has opinions about that. It is a unbelievable 60 degrees here in Maryland in the middle of December, which is why my window is open and why you can hear the dog barking at, as far as I can tell, nothing. There is a walking path that runs next to our house, and she does often bark at people walking by, especially people with dogs, but right now there doesn't seem to be anyone there, so I have no idea. So as I said, we are getting very close to Christmas, so I am in prep for Christmas mode, baking cookies and ordering and wrapping gifts and planning meals and all of that good stuff. The kids have 1 more week of school. I think technically JJ has a couple of days of school the week of Christmas, but I'm not going to be making him attend online school in a few days before Christmas. There's no way he's going to pay any attention to that. So we have been listening to lots of Christmas music and watching lots of Christmas specials, mostly for the kids. I haven't really watched any of my Christmas favorites yet. Hopefully, still have 2 weeks, so we'll have some time. We did watch White Christmas. We always watch White Christmas on Thanksgiving after dinner. But other than that, we have not watched Santa Claus or Love Actually or any of those more, I guess, slightly more grown-up movies. I guess Santa Claus isn't necessarily an adult movie, but it's not something that interests my kids yet. So maybe soon. I am doing lots of knitting, both for finishing up my designs for the year and for some Christmas gifts. So I will show you those a little bit later in the podcast. And other than that, we have, of course, been staying home and doing nothing. I've done all of our Christmas shopping online. I need to do a Target run, hopefully this week, and get some stocking stuffers. But other than that, I have ordered everything online. It is not here yet. I haven't wrapped anything yet, but I've ordered it all, and I don't have any more gifts to buy as far as I know, unless someone pops up out of the woodwork, but that seems unlikely. We will just be having our small Christmas with my dad and sister. Occasionally we have some of my husband's family in town, either for Thanksgiving or Christmas, but obviously this year that's not happening. They are all staying home, as far as I know. My brother-in-law, who was here for Thanksgiving, is in Peru. My mother-in-law lives in Chile with my husband's older brother. I don't think they're doing any traveling, certainly not here. I guess they could travel to Peru, but they're definitely not coming here. And all of my family lives in the Baltimore and surrounding area. So none of us ever have to travel, which is kind of nice. But of course, we will be keeping our distance and doing Zoom Christmas if needed. You might notice some slightly different background behind me here. So I decided this week, since I had so much knitting to do, that I definitely needed to rearrange my studio. So that is what I've done. It's still a bit messy. I haven't quite finished everything, but at least the part right immediately behind me is looking much neater. So I've moved my desk right behind me, spinning wheel corners over here. I also have a, that you can't quite see, a mending basket over there. And then all of the stuff that used to be behind me is now over on the far side of the room and a little bit better organized. So not today, since it's still a mess, but maybe in the next episode I'll do a little tour of my rearranged studio. Last year for Christmas, my dad gave me a hanging chair that not chair, but hanging seat, I guess. It's kind of bowl shaped and you can hang it from the ceiling, which I really wanted, and it still has not been put up. I don't trust my husband to do it. I'm going to take a little break here and insert a picture of the gingerbread house that I put my husband in charge of this year. So I think you can see why I don't trust him to hang a seat from the ceiling that needs to be able to support my weight without dropping me on the floor. I do trust my dad to do it, but that has not happened yet, hopefully soon, since he is the one that gave me the chair. But rearranging my studio, I've created a nice space for it that is over by the windows. So we'll get lots of light and it will be a nice seat for reading and knitting, I hope. Maybe by the next episode, I will have wrangled my dad into finally hanging that up. We shall see. He will be here on Christmas Day. That's probably not the best day for me to ask him to do it. So we'll have to see how that plays out. So I hope whatever holiday you are celebrating, you are prepared and enjoying yourself and that you have gotten all of your shopping and cooking and whatever else done, and you were able to find some relaxing time between now and Christmas if you don't have knits that you need to finish knitting to gift. And speaking of knitting, let's go ahead and start talking about some. All right, so for on and off the needles in this episode, I actually finished something. This is my chevroche hat. This is an upcoming pattern by Sarah Jordan, aka PA Knitwit, that she allowed me to test for her. So I knit my version of the hat in Kitty Pride Fibers Tabby Worsted in two contrasting colors. So you can see this has a brioche, two-color brioche around the bottom of the cap, and it is worked in sort of a chevron shape. And what that does is gives you some parts of the hat that fall lower and some that ride up a little higher. So I will put this on briefly. Okay, so, oh, I'm losing the light. it kind of comes down and covers your ears really nicely, and then is still, you know, high enough on the front of your face that it's not covering your eyes or anything. I really like the shaping on the top. I hope I showed that off nicely. And yeah, I really like the way that the sort of ears curve down and give you more coverage here, and then it stays well out of your eyes on the top. And I guess, well, you can't really see the back, but same deal. Lower here. I guess you could do it the other way if you wanted, you know, your eyes covered for some reason. Beats me. So I don't think I'm gonna keep this. I do think I'm gonna give it away. More on that in a second. And probably, you know, at some point I will knit another one for myself. But, wow, now my hair looks fantastic. So I don't think I'll be keeping it, but the pattern is lovely. It is very clear and well written. I don't know off the top of my head when Sarah will be releasing it. She recently released her chevroche cowl, so presumably this is going to kind of come right behind it. But this is great. This was a super fast knit. If you're new to brioche, it might not be as fast for you. Not because brioche is hard, but it's a little fiddly to get the hang of. But if you are already comfortable with the 2-color brioche, then yes, this is a really fast knit. Like I finished once I actually, you know, started on it and got focused on it. It was just a couple of days. I might have knit the top part just a little bit longer. It's really kind of hard. It's a little difficult to gauge how long you want it to be because the brioche opens up so much for when you block it. So it's a bit difficult to tell what the final dimensions are going to be. So just bearing that in mind. The way that I blocked my hat was to place it over a small round plate and then stack a couple of cans under it to hold it up. So that way the brioche did kind of pull down and open up, but the top of the hat was mostly spread over the plate, so there wasn't a lot of lengthwise stretch up here. It mostly came from the brioche, and you do want that to open up. So again, I'm not sure exactly when Sarah's going to be releasing this pattern. You can check her out on Instagram. Her handle is PA_Knitwit, and I am sure she will tell you there when the pattern is coming. But this is a great quick knit, and it's nice and cozy too. So I finally finished something. I got something off the needles. I have started a couple of new projects too. Nothing for me yet, but I've started a couple of Christmas gifts. Let's see if I can find them. Start with this one. My sister asked for a pair of fingerless mitts, but not the kind where the top is open. She wanted little half fingers, which if you're watching this, Megan, I hate doing that. So you should be very appreciative. Also, go ahead and look away now so you don't see your gift. So I am using the In a Fog pattern. I will put the designer's name here because I don't know it off the top of my head. This is one of the patterns I bought during the Indie Design Gift Along sale period. So the designer is a participant in the gift along, and presumably if I finish this by Christmas, which is the plan, then I'll be able to post it over in the gift along. So this is a pretty straightforward pattern. The only change I made, other than the stupid fingers, is using a different, it didn't really specify, it specified a German twisted cast on, which is really good for stretchy ribbed, but I find that cuffs of mitts don't need to be quite as stretchy, and so I went with an alternating cable cast on, which gives you sort of a little bit of a tubular cast on look. It blends in a little bit more smoothly. And it's still plenty stretchy, but I find that you don't want mitts to stretch out too much around the cuff because you want to keep air out. So I just made that, just did a different cast on. This is a pretty simple color work pattern. You can see I am using the leftover yarn from the hat, which is probably why I'm going to give the hat away to my sister with her stupid fingerless mitts that need fingers. So the actual pattern gives you options for mittens or fingerless mitts. So I just, when it came time to work whatever edging she had for the fingerless mitts option, I just started working that as individual little half fingers instead. Now, I was working on this earlier today and I left it sitting on the floor by my desk, and JJ came into my studio and was messing around, which he's not supposed to do, and he tripped over it and broke one needle. So fortunately it wasn't one of the needles that was holding the stitches, but it was the needle that I was using to knit. Somebody's out there talking to the dog. So I don't have another one, and I don't even think I have another set of size 4 DPNs, so that's a conundrum. We have some super glue. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was surprised that she was actually, the dog's being nice to whoever's talking to her, but it's this lady that walks by all the time with her dog, Abby, I think. And Thistle is friends with Abby. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. Right, I have some super glue. I don't know if it's gonna work on wood. These are bamboo needles. I don't have any wood glue. And then of course the problem with the glue is that if it seeps out, then you get bumps. These are knit picks. There's not time to knit another set of these before, order another set of these and have it arrive before Christmas. I actually placed a knit picks order recently. And usually their shipping is really fast, but this time it took a good 2 weeks to get to me. So I don't know, we'll see. I guess I can figure out some way to fudge it if I really need to. But so work in progress, stupid little fingers for my sister. But the rest of the mitt is a nice quick, this is a very simple color work, easy peasy, knits out quickly in the worsted weight. And then because it is stranded color work, you get sort of all those floats in the back, making these extra warm. So that is one thing I have on the needles, and I'm certainly determined to finish by Christmas. Better get this all the way back in here so nobody steps on anything again. And then the other project I have started, another gift, is a cowl for my husband that doesn't look like much right now. So I've just started the ribbing. The orange stuff is a provisional cast on. The pattern that I'm using is called The Snuggle is Real by Max something that I'm going to put right here. And this is a double layered cowl. So that is why it starts from a provisional cast on, so that you can knit the inner layer and then join them together pretty easily. No sewing involved. So the yarn I am using is, this one is Chinku Yarns, DK weight, not alpaca, their merino one. And again, I'll put it here because I am wildly unprepared. And this one, which is what was a club yarn from Fiber for the People, and now is available in her shop when she does updates occasionally, and I believe it is called either Char or Charred, either or. So you can see this is a nice speckled neutral, and it pairs really nicely with this pretty red. This might look familiar because I was originally going to use this for my Lionheart shawl. It's one of the 3 colors, or both colors actually were going to be part of that, until I realized that it is color work knit flat, which I hate, and I'm no longer, I mean, Not that I was making much progress as it was, but I'm no longer doing that project. So these are DK weight. This one is a BFL DK. And this one I'm pretty sure is merino, but it's looking a little fuzzy, so I'm gonna double check. And of course, all that info is gonna be linked in the show notes, so you can check as well. And then I'm wildly unprepared for this podcast. The inner layer of the cowl is done in either lace weight mohair or Suri alpaca. And so I'm going to be using this. This is actually leftover from a design project that I did earlier this year, and it's actually going to be published. It's my son. And it's actually going to be published in early 2021. No, that's worse. Okay. This is, I'm sure I have showed you guys in a previous episode. This is a Suri alpaca silk blend from Yarn Love. The colorway is called Shiny Penny. So they all go pretty well together, but it's not super important because this is on the inside, just to make it extra soft and give it an extra layer, but you don't actually see this part of the cowl. So as you can see, I've barely made any progress. I just started this yesterday. But what I did do was a new provisional cast on. So now here, the provisional cast on I usually do is a crochet chain cast on, where you crochet a long chain and then with scrap yarn and then pick up stitches from the back of the chain. So what I did this time was a crochet provisional cast on where you crochet the scrap yarn directly onto your knitting needle. So it sort of eliminates a step. I don't know if it will be any easier to take out. The problem I always have with the crochet provisional cast on is that it's supposed to unzip neatly, and it almost never does for me. And I don't know if I'm starting at the wrong end or what the deal is, but it rarely works for me. I don't know if this will be any different, but it does eliminate a step, whereas with the traditional crochet chain, you crochet the chain first, and then you go back and pick up the stitches. This time it was all one step. Crochet the loops of the scrap yarn directly onto your knitting needle, and then you're ready to go. So I will probably, maybe after I get a little more practice, do a tutorial on that in the near future. Again, I don't know yet how easily it's going to unzip, which is kind of a key for me. If it's going to replace the regular crochet chain, it should at least provide that benefit for the unzipping challenged, but we'll see. In terms of at least executing it, it seems a little bit more hassle-free. It is fiddly to crochet directly onto the knitting needle. I'm sure it is something that gets easier with practice. So that is the other project I have started. I have one more Christmas gift that I'm planning. The yarn has not arrived yet. It should be here tomorrow. Will it actually get done? I don't know. I'm sure it would be nice if it would. It's for my dad. It is a pair of slippers. But like I said, when I'm recording this, it is Sunday, December 13th, and Christmas is Friday, December 25th. So we got less than 2 weeks to go, and I've got those two projects to finish, and then those designs, and so we'll see. But that is on and off the needles in this episode. So in the process of cleaning it and rearranging my studio, I went through my whip baskets, plural, and I found not one, but two UFOs that I had I mean, I know there's a lot of unfinished projects in there, but I had completely forgotten about both of these. So the first, is this. This is a shawl. This is a kit that my husband bought for me for something. I don't, a birthday or something along those lines years ago. And I obviously have not made a ton of progress. The pattern is called On the Spice Market. This is a Melanie Berg pattern. And I don't remember anything about this yarn. For starters, the only thing that's in here are 2 balls of yarn, and it obviously has one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 1 main color, which is the neutral, and 6 contrast colors. And all I've got is the 1 main color and 1 contrast color, so I don't know where the other 5 are. And the truth is that while I like this pattern, I don't really care for these colors. Like the reds are okay, but these greens and yellows, those are really not my style. So I've already taken this off the needles and I'm going to frog it. And I have, like I said, I don't know where the other yarn is and I don't remember anything about it. The pattern calls for Miss Babs. I'm almost positive this is not Miss Babs. It's definitely something fuzzy. I feel like maybe it's got some alpaca in it. You can see some halo. It's a single ply. Yeah, because the pattern calls for Miss Babs Yummy 2-ply, and this is a single ply yarn. Half the yarn is missing. So that is an ancient UFO, several years old. It is definitely not going to come to anything, but I am really curious about the yarn. I do like the pattern. Another picture of it. So maybe someday this will get back on my needles with some colors that are more my style. But it's a real bummer that I seem to have misplaced half the kit and I don't even remember what it is. So that's UFO number 1, definitely being frogged. Goodbye. And then I came across this one. Like when I found the shawl, I was like, what's this? Ah, yeah, I kind of remember it. This one, I was like, the hell, I don't remember this at all. It took me a much longer period of time to remember what this was. This is a sweater. You can see I left this one on the needles that I started for my older son years ago. It's a tin can knits pattern, and again, I'm wildly unprepared, but I will go ahead and add that information in here. I definitely started this back when I was still playing in the Harry Potter Knit and Crochet House Cup, which was ages ago. At least it seems like it, but then again, 2020 has been like a decade, so it could have been 2 years ago. But I think it was a bit longer than that. The pattern is not in here. I have no idea what size I was knitting. I think I was knitting a 6, knowing it would be big on him. And now he's going to be 8 in February. So if I was knitting the 6, I could conceivably finish it for Ollie, but he is 6, which means if I do, and he's small for 6, but still, if I do, it's not going to fit him for much longer. He also doesn't really like sweaters, but that's sort of a different problem altogether. So yeah, I mean, it's really cute. It's got, I can never remember, seed or moss stitch or whatever that one is. just interspersed with some cables. You know, nothing overly complicated, just keeping track of your moss stitch and what rows to work your cables on, your cable crosses. The yarn is really beautiful. In fact, I think this is what my son was in here looking at earlier when he tripped and broke my knitting needle and stabbed himself in the foot. His foot is fine. It was a wooden needle, and it's just a tiny little poke in the heel, which, you know, is the toughest part of your foot, but he screamed like he'd been murdered. It's very overly dramatic. Anyway, so the yarn is Neighborhood Fiber Company Studio DK. The colorway is Anacostia. It's really beautiful. 275 yards, and it looks like I've got 3 skeins of it. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7, 50, 750, and then another 75, so 825. Plenty of yarn, you know, to probably knit either one of them a sweater. I think because of the cables and the texture, it uses a little bit more yarn than maybe you would normally plan out for a kid's sweater, which is probably why I have 3 skeins. Really beautiful color. Just, so I'm not sure what to do with this one. Again, the pattern isn't in here. I'm not really sure what size I was knitting. I may have put that information on Ravelry, but that's a big may. It is in the cutest bag. Let's see if I can see. So yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that one. If you have thoughts about this, I'm kind of leaning toward just frogging it and picking a new pattern, especially if I can't figure out what size I was knitting. I really don't see much point in knitting a size 6 sweater for either of my kids now that they're 6 and almost 8. I know if I knit a size 8 sweater for JJ, at some point it will fit Ollie, so that's less of a concern. But to knit a sweater I know is only going to fit one of my kids for 1 season, it just seems kind of like a waste of time. So opinions welcome. I have 800-ish yards of a DK weight yarn, which should be plenty to knit perhaps something else. If you have a good boys sweater pattern to recommend, let me know. So that's what I have this week. 2 UFOs for our UFO invasion. All right, for Adelante, I have made some progress on my final designs, my final 2. So first I will show you the sweater. I haven't made as much progress as I would like, although I did make, as you can see, I got my hair fixed. I went to the salon yesterday. I had a really nice colorist who would like open the salon early for me, and I could, you know, pop in really early in the morning, get it done and out of the way and get on with my day. And then the last time I texted her, she was like, "Oh, I've moved to Texas." Like, thanks for the heads up. Because I'd like followed her to 3 different salons, and it was unexpected. So I have a new place, and it's fine, but they don't tend to be very much on time. So my appointment was at 11:30, and the guy didn't even start putting the color on my hair until afternoon. So I was there for quite a bit longer than planned, especially during a pandemic. It's not ideal. Of course, everyone was wearing masks and the doors and windows were open, and it wasn't, you know, super crowded. There were probably 6, 7 people in there, but still. But I got a lot of knitting done on this. So again, this is a top-down raglan that has color work at the hem. So I am well into the body now, and unlike traditional sweaters where the waist shaping will come in and then go out, I am making this an A-line shape, so it's just going out. So I'm a good 3.5, probably after it's blocked, 4 inches into the body. And it is just basically stockinette and then an increase round every 11 rounds at this point. This is knit on a pretty small needle. So this is a sport weight yarn, and I am knitting on a US 4. So even though I have been working on it quite a bit, it's not growing super fast just because it is not a very heavy yarn. But it is, I think, working up nicely. And now that I put it on a larger needle, so you can see a little bit more how the neck has a little bit of shaping. It's a little bit lower in the front. I used German short rows for this to shape the neck. I recently shared a new tutorial for them, and that is my preferred short row technique at this moment. They blend in really nicely. They're practically invisible in this fabric, and will be even more so after it is blocked. So that is, I am plugging away. As I said, the plan is to release this pattern on the very last day of December to officially wrap up my pattern design career and move on to hopefully more profitable endeavors. So I have been working on that, and I have been working on the kids Umamargo, which I can tell you now is going to be called the Hilo jacket. Hilo means like trickle or wisp, so it kind of goes nicely with smoke. Umamargo means bitter smoke. And Hilo is also a diminutive, so, you know, being for little people, that works out nicely. So Hilo jacket, and so I finished the body. I'm really annoyed how much nicer it's fading on this side than on this. Here you can see the stripes are are more prominent, and here they really fade together nicely. So for this, I am using Amano Yarns Warmy, which is, I know, it is definitely mostly alpaca. I don't know exactly the distribution. I want to say it's 70-30 alpaca wool. So usually I recommend against using alpaca for sweaters because it spreads out so much. It doesn't hold its shape very well, but this does have some, I believe, wool in it. And also, because this is knit side to side, the tendency in garter stitch is to pull this way. It doesn't stretch as much the other way. And since you're counteracting that by knitting it side to side, I'm less worried about it pulling out of shape. This is also, you know, a pretty casual fit jacket, so it's not, you know, super important that it stays super in shape. So I finished the body. This is an open front like Umamargo with, it's going to have optional toggles on the front, and then it has pockets. So you can see I put the openings for the pockets in. I will use a thinner yarn to line the pockets. It has a V-neck, which is shaped with short rows. So it is knit side to side, and it begins from the center of the back. This is, it begins from a provisional cast on, where you will work to Vickle lateral braids, and you work outward from there. Okay. It obviously needs sleeves, and then it will need some kind of hem at the bottom. It's just going to be simple ribbed hem. So this is well on its way. The sleeves are in garter stitch, which means since they're knit in the round, they're going to go a little more slowly because you've got to do one knit round, one purl round. I was hoping to have this done this weekend. Well, the best laid plans, it is not done. Hopefully by next weekend, so I can, you know, sort of drop this pattern right before Christmas. We shall see. But it is moving along smoothly, and hopefully my son will, well, even if he doesn't like it, he will at least cooperate with having himself photographed in it. So those again are my last two designs. I do have one more, which is a shawl that I am waiting on from a sample knitter. And then that is it. That is all she wrote, and we'll be having this segment much less often. I do have a couple more patterns coming out in the new year, but they're already done, and unless I just randomly decide to design a pattern for the fun of it, that is going to be the end of Adelante, but we'll find something equally interesting to throw in here. Stash flash. I have to confess that I have actually been buying a lot of yarn. Since I am drawing to a close on designing patterns, that means I'm gonna have a lot more time to knit for myself and maybe for my family, but much more time to knit for myself than I have had in recent memory. I don't really need any yarn. I mean, I still have plenty of yarn, but the idea of being able to knit projects for myself, I have been doing some yarn shopping, mostly to get, you know, kind of garment-sized quantities of yarn, which I have less of. So first, as I mentioned in a previous segment, I had done a knit picks order at the end of November. It took the longest time to get here, much longer than usual. So I don't know what their deal is, and it wasn't the post office. It took well over a week for it to be marked as shipped, and then even once it was marked as shipped, it was stuck at, you know, whatever you know, shipping information received. Or if you run a business, please stop sending your customers emails saying your item has shipped when all you've done is print the label. Nothing makes me more irate than getting an email that says your item has shipped, and I think, okay. And then a few days I'm like, oh, where is it? It said it shipped, and then I go in and it's been stuck on, like, you know, label printed or shipping information sent for like 4 days. Don't do that. Don't send them that email that it's on the way until it's actually on the way. Anyway, so I was stuck in that for several days. And then once it finally actually shipped, it only took a few. So I don't know what's going on over at Knit Picks. Anyway, the first thing I bought is a new yarn for them. This is called Kindred. This light is bumming me out. It was sunny and it's clouded up. Anyway, this is called Kindred. This is a DK weight alpaca cotton blend. So 68% baby alpaca, 32% Pima cotton. You can see it has a little bit of a heathered look. And this colorway is called Tea Cake, so this is a pale purple. There are a couple of short sleeve DK weight tops in my queue that this will work for. So I bought enough for one of those. So I think that'd be nice for the spring when, when we're, you know, it's starting to get warmer, but we're not quite there yet. We're not really ready for short sleeve tops, but maybe if your short sleeve top is mostly alpaca, it'll be a little bit more wearable. So that is the first one. And then this one, I'm not sure I have a couple of possibilities. I haven't really decided anything. I just bought it entirely for the color. So this is Provincial Tweed, and I just love this dark blue with light brown tweed flecks. I love it. So the Provincial Tweed is 80% superwash fine Highland wool, 20% Donegal tweed. This colorway is called Winter Walk, and I love it. It really jumped out at me. Incidentally, I bought both of these during their big sale, as well as a couple of things for gifts, and I am pretty sure this was the only one that was actually on sale. The other ones, not so much. That's just how it goes. So this is a worsted weight, and I bought enough for a sweater. I don't have a specific sweater in mind. I have a couple of candidates. One of them I think is called The Bee's Knees by Baby Cocktails, Thea Coleman. That's a maybe. This is not a super tightly plied yarn, so I'm not sure if it's really going to make those cables stand out enough. That's a really cabley sweater, but we shall see. So another future sweater, I hope. Tuck that back in here. And then I may have mentioned on a previous episode that in October, when I had my unpleasant birthday, turning an unpleasant nice round number, I decided to treat myself to some yarn then. So I ordered a sweater quantity from Fiber for the People, and it just arrived a couple of days ago. So again, the light, it's just gotten cloudy, so apologies. It's not great. So what I ordered was fingering weight and a mohair to blend together in a pattern. Can my children stop yelling? The fingering weight is in Sapphire, and the lace weight mohair is in Kalamata. So this is sort of a browny red or a reddish brown, and then this is just a really beautiful deep blue. So she has some really amazing, variegated colorways, but for a sweater, I really wanted something, maybe a little tonal, but not so all over the place. I'm just not a fan of like super heavy variegated sweaters. That's not my style in general. So I went with two colors that I believe are in her, they're not in her signature solids, I don't think, but they are sort of her more straightforward colorways. They're not super variegated. There's definitely some variation in Kalamata. This one is a little more straightforward. And I was a little bummed because I had originally ordered the lace weight Sari alpaca. And then she wrote to me and said that, whoever her supplier is was out of that base and wasn't going to get it back in before the end of the year. So that was kind of a bummer. I do like the Sari alpaca better than the mohair. It's a little bit softer, but it is certainly not the end of the world. So it looks lovely on this base as well. I think they're going to be an interesting combo. As I've said before, I really like blues and browns mixed together, and I think especially since this is more of a reddish toned brown, these are going to come together in an interesting way. If not, I can always use them separately or combine this with something else, but I'm happy to have my sweater quantity. I was originally planning to use this for A Daydreamer by Andrea Mowry, but then she recently released a new sweater pattern that is also a fingering weight mohair called, I want to say Pink Fizz. I will double check because it could be Pink Fuzz, but I think it's Pink Fizz. And that's another really cute sort of fingering weight mohair, my style sweater. I hate to jump on bandwagons, but she really just does release some really cute sweater patterns. So it's probably going to be one of those two. I'm still leaning toward the Daydreamer for this, but we will see. I had also recently placed an order with Wems, mostly for gifts. I don't think there was anything in there for me to knit for me. I think it was all yarn for gifts. Well, now that I think about it. Anyway, it hasn't arrived yet. I was hoping it was going to arrive in time to include in this episode so I could show off all my yarn at once, but unfortunately it looks like it's going to be here tomorrow. So, oh well. That is all of the yarn that has recently entered my stash. And that is all I have for you in this episode of the Hilo Stitch podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 30. Links to everything that I have talked about can be found in the show notes at mediaperuana.com/HiloStitch. Special thank you again to my Patreon patrons who help support the podcast and keep it up and running. If you are interested in supporting the podcast and getting lots of perks and freebies and behind the scenes goodies, you can find more information about that at patreon.com/mediaperuana. Here on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, like, comment, share, all of those good things that help expand the reach of not only the podcast, but the channel where I have all those wonderful free knitting tutorials. If you are looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram as Media Peruana. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and whatever other holidays you may be celebrating between now and close to the end of December. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. I will hopefully see you again right before the new year. So until next time.
It's just a mop. It's a mop. Who's that? Thistle, who's that? Santa's here to see you guys.
It's ours to do too, yeah.
Santa, how nice of you to come to my home. Thistle is also excited about Santa.
Get him, Thistle. Get it.